physical body goes back to this concept that somehow your spirit
Finds its way back.
is in your body, not your body in your spirit.
Oh, so it's a reversal.
So like you're never actually separate. Like the physical body is the vessel that you're experiencing this reality with. But to go experience a different reality, you don't need the physical body to go to the astral realm, to the fifth dimension.
It's like the astronaut, why they probably call the psychonauts, the DMTs are psychonauts, because the astronaut has the one link cable of oxygen back to the ship, and he floats out there and does his thing in space before coming back.
Yeah, and psychonaut is also the concept of you're going into space, and like you said, like a suit. The suit is the substance. So you're a psychonaut because you're going into the astral, into the spaces, in a mushroom suit, in a DMT suit.
So is that why you maintain your form in the astral? Why I still look like me?
Yeah.
You have a residual self-image.
Well, yeah.
Now, is that a self-image, or is that the imprint of your oversoul?
I think
I don't know.
Two different things. Because well, at least I guess it's your understanding. Because my understanding of oversoul is like a divine component that's actually unified instead of separate into this. For example, the Sephiroth, the oversoul is above that, and they're all coming down from the oversoul. But it wouldn't be your residual self-image because it's the unified portion of all the divided yous, all of the different incarnations that you came in as over the course of all the many lifetimes. So it would be like, for example, if all of us are just pieces of Jesus, then our oversoul would probably look like Jesus. But each one of us, bald head, long beard, short beard, whatever, black, white, whatever, it's just whatever you came into this world as, which version of that you came into this world as.
Yeah.
It's confusing the car for the driver, as Ram Dass would say, kind of.
Essentially, yeah. Well, and then also, there's two aspects of that, like the soul, like it has a desire, like it has a mission, has soul contracts, it has a joy, wants to come in and experience things. It's not like, I don't think the soul is exactly lining up with like, okay, so in order for me to have all these experiences, I need to be born into a body with someone that has scoliosis, so I'll also inherit scoliosis. So then I have, like that might be someone's soul contract, but I don't think the soul gives as much of a crap about race and look and genealogy as sometimes we like to think it does.
What if it only does when the soul contract requires that? Like, for example, the Jewish myth that not the myth, but the Jewish belief that they are a persecuted people in that sense.
In that sense, yeah, I believe in that concept. And in that same concept, I would believe you would be born with certain elements because it's part of your soul contract or the energy that needs to be worked out. So like as an example, like if you live one life as someone that's very like sneaky and like lies all the time and is deceptive and is like an adulterer and like is a pathological liar, in like core shamanism, your next manifestation might be a creature, an animal that relies on deception to live, like a mockingjay or something like that.
Certain types of snakes or things that use trickery.
You need that so that all that energy gets worked out of you. So that in the next incarnation, you've learned that you don't need to rely on that anymore.
So that kind of goes into the Buddhist belief of the reincarnation wheel, for example. So us going in and out of the animal realms would be us working through our karma. Oh goodness, that puts dolphins into a different light.
Yeah, and I would say it's both. Keep going.
Oh, it strikes me as interesting because you have the idea that a person who falls into bad behavior, repeat bad behavior, almost like it becomes a part of their just being, where they are just going to be doing that for the rest of their lives now. They can't stop themselves. I feel like that is becoming less human, becoming more animalistic. In my studies, they call those infernal virtues, if you want to use the Christian term, we call them aggregates. And those aggregates weigh you down evolutionarily in a cosmic way. They weigh you down. And so it makes sense that reincarnation-wise, if you're weighed down enough by those animalistic tendencies, you would have to reincarnate as an animal to work those out in its actual kingdom, and it's in the place that those belonged, and actually serve a positive purpose. So that when you finally get back out of that and you've served a positive purpose with all those, you ascend back to humanity or whatever the next creature level is. Now that you've worked that out and integrated it, you have the chance to go again without obsessing and falling into the same cycle because you've already worked it out in a positive way.
Gotcha.
You've gone through the darkness and found the light.
Yeah. And I would say it's at least like my understanding, like what I'd lean into is that it's not so much of like the animal realm or the plant realm. It'd be like you're being weighed down or like it's below you, so you have to like de-evolve into this form. It's all vibrational. It's all horizontal. Everything is on the same plane. It's just
a slider.
It's a slider. Yeah. And so it's like as you've been more deceitful, okay, yeah, like you need to go be a boa snake now. A snake that's not a rattlesnake, but looks like a rattlesnake and has to look like a rattlesnake to live, or else it will be killed easily. So it's like you got to look like you got to be in a disguise your whole time, and then you work that energy out. Or But at the same time, using like indigenous beliefs, like the animals are respectful. They have a spirit about them. They have lessons for us too. And so it might be on the positive side, because I know as humans, we like to focus on the negative a lot. And I'm trying to get out of that habit a little bit myself of like always going to like, oh, deceitfulness, negativity. It might also be, oh, you lived a really great life, or you've done your things. And what would serve your soul best is to learn how to observe. So now you're going to go be a giant sycamore tree for the next 100 years. Or
you need to chill, become a tree for however long.
Or like, you deserve to. You deserve to observe. You have so much love for humanity that you want to be, part of the earth more. And so maybe you want to be part of the earth so much, now the energy merges back in with being a mountain. And the part of you that wants to go off and be reincarnated elsewhere into a higher being does that. But I'd also say like there's this energy being worked out, because there's the you that is, and then there are these energies that come on a part of you. Like this physical body is the vessel for the soul. It is a reflection of the things that are going on in the soul, and they're a reflection of what's going on in the current state within the body and so forth. But at the same time, it's like when that is over, the soul still has other things it's going to go do. And so that might come back in a different physical body. It might not come back in a physical body. It might go off to something else that was out there. And part of that, so it's always just like a slider. You go into the thing you're in there. And there's something else I was going to say, because there's something you were speaking about, John, that like triggered something in me. Now I lost where I was going with it. Not that concept was like a separate point, but coming back to like the silver cord, I think the silver cord belief is a belief that came from people being afraid of losing themselves in the astral, became afraid, and also
I can see that
not like, and then coming back and having some, they might feel different, they might have some psychological issues, and they're blaming that on, oh, I got lost in the astral, something got attached to me and it came back with me, and like. Some of that does happen, but more often what's happened is it's like you went and had an amazing experience. So the story you're telling yourself no longer works. And so why the mental psychosis, not psychosis, the mental psychology is trying to like, settle. You feel like you've gone crazy for a moment. And so I say all that, so I think people got afraid of getting lost out there, where you get into the astral and like you can see some stuff that you don't want to necessarily deal with. That can be scary. And so it's like when I do teach people to go into the astral, it's like part of it is like shamanic dreaming. There's different stages. And I actually teach people to go into lucid dreaming first, and then how to get out of lucid dreaming into astral. But part of that is so I can teach them how to wake themselves up. Because if you know how to wake yourself up from a dream, like once you realize you're dreaming, once you realize you're projecting, you know how to wake yourself up, you can get out of any situation. So if you do experience something, you're like, whoa, that's a bunch of, crazy aliens over there that are like bombing each other and they're doing some crazy stuff I can't even understand. And that vibration is freaking me out. And I don't know what to do about it. And I feel like they're going to come at me and attack me. You can wake yourself up. Because in reality, they may not actually be coming to attack you. There may not actually be any danger.
Yeah.
It's your internal, so you get to remain full sovereign control. Because I think what happens with people in astral projection is they learn how to get out of their body, but then they've heard too many horror stories of things happening, or that you might run into the Greys out there and they might try to abduct you, or something.
You might
like that.
not come back.
You might not come back, and so there's got to be a silver cord to hang on to. And then, so the silver cord became this thing.
It became the lifeline for the uninitiated, essentially.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would say, going back to that luminous egg and all these thousands of threads,
the interconnecting threads
that connect us all, is that idea that when you're astral projecting, you're just going down one of those threads.
So you're never actually disconnecting. Technically, you're just sideways,
or it's that concept of assemblage points, like where your energy is focused. So when you're focused here in the physical realm, that's where your luminous egg is. That's where your assemblage point is. When you're focused on the astral, that's where your assemblage point is. That's where your consciousness is.
So it's similar to like in body weightlifting. You have to put your mind into the muscle. If I'm working my bicep, I am here and I am fully in here.
Yes.
That's what astral projection is putting myself fully here.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Fully.
Well, down there.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
That's why I believe there are realms in the astral realm that you can go to, both light and dark, and all the varying different kinds in there, is because they are not, I guess, technically separate containers, but only in the sense that there is an assemblage point of those kinds of energies that all just kind of migrate together in space and time or whatever. And that when you're in the astral, you can journey into one willingly or accidentally fall into another one. And that's where people get like the trips that they don't understand, or the bad trips. From one of my own bad trips, I remember waking up from being like, why did I see all these demons and all these nightmare versions of myself? And if I hadn't had the studies to know, hey, those are just part of you, you just need to integrate them, I would have stuck with that horror of what was that? because I have the additional knowledge, like, okay, those are just other parts of me, other facets of my darker, my shadow sides that I need to identify and integrate and watch out for in my life if I'm showing up as those versions or not. And not to kill them off or delete them, but to integrate them to where they belong.
Exactly. Yes. And it's that thing too. It's like when people wake up from dreams sometimes. I think that's also why people have this fear sometimes of astral projection, and it can actually keep you from learning how to astral project or how to get into transcendental states. Like I know people where like, I can take them through a very deep breath work, and like somehow they still aren't like, I'm not saying like they have to go into a transcendental state, but they're like they don't feel any different. Like they go through this hour-long breath work and they come out of it and they're like, yeah, I just feel like I breathed for an hour and I don't feel shifted at all. It's because there's something in them that they're not letting themselves shift, or they're afraid to shift. And so I think with the astral projection, people get afraid of going into these zones, and so they create these boundaries for themselves. But I think like these are different realms. And so it's like, even when you wake up, if you wake up and you had a dream that made you feel anxious, I think there's two things you can do. Like you wake up and you feel full of anxiety, you can label, yes, that was a dream. And then you can ask yourself, was that just a dream? Or is there something in my subconscious, in my life, that is running on background that's causing anxiety? Because the same with like dreams. I know we went from astral, now we're talking about dreams, but dreams are in that same realm. And they're like they bump up against that realm, like they're side by side. But like dreams can also be answers to our subconscious, but they can also be memories and experiences of the day jumbled together and the mind's just processing it.
Yeah, I've heard that theory before where it's the mind attempting to make sense of the world around you. But then I also, another thing that you mentioned there was the answers to questions.
Yeah.
The sewing machine, the inventor of that had a massive problem for weeks on weeks. He couldn't figure out how to get the thread to catch on the bottom.
Yes.
And he specifically used a dreaming technique where he put the answer in a room on a pedestal, and then he walked into the room to see it and then woke up and created it.
Interesting.
The spiral deboning machine that like the companies that make the ham.
Similar thing.
The guy just he cashed out all of his savings. Go like, I'm going to build this. I'm going to figure it out. And couldn't figure it out. And his wife was getting on him for it. And then in the middle of the night, he had a dream of that he walked into his garage, and on the bench there it was, and he had the time in his dream to take it apart and see how he did it. He woke up and ran in there and built it in one shot.
There you go.
With a kitchen knife and the parts of a lawnmower and I think it was a dryer.
Spin.
It was all there in the garage. It just had to be put together.
I love it. I'm just picturing like a dryer with a knife taped on the inside and just stick the ham in.
I'm more of just like seeing like the wife come in and it's like the dryer's half in pieces, the lawnmower's half in pieces,
spinning
and there's
knife
this
dryer.
new thing that's there. But he's like, look what I've created. She's like, yeah, but how are we going to cut the grass and like do laundry?
It's like she came in.
We'll make somebody else do it now.
Yeah. He's like, don't you understand all the money we're going to make? We can hire people for that. She's like,
exactly.
Yeah, but the lawn's already 2 feet tall.
We just kind of noticed from the city.
Yes, you built the thing from your dreams, but now I have 3 problems.
Yeah. But no,
I love it. This is great. I've heard this line of reasoning so much.
Fate becoming obligation.
Well, there'll always be an answer. You have to download. Now do something with it.
Right.
Which I think that's another thing too, is like you get downloads or answers in the dreams. Will you do something with it? So if your subconscious is telling you something, it could be the answer to a problem you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's just we have to be listening.
You have to be listening. Or it could be, it could be like the mind trying to figure out the day. So it's like if you wake up with anxiety or stress, just these those examples, it's like, well, you may have had a very stressful day yesterday. So you had very stressful dreams. And now you've processed all that stress, so it's out of your system. Now you can wake up and feel calm and great, or you have a little residual stress because that's been the vibration you've been in for a moment.
Yeah.
Or it might be hey, so you've been like, overworking yourself. You're on the verge of burnout. This is me trying to tell you you're on the verge of burnout. And so it's up to you. Like when you wake up in your dreams, like you can just ignore them and go about your life and still have a great and happy life.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You don't need to know the chakras to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to know this, but it's like if you're curious about your dreams and you're curious about the way you feel when you wake up, it's like, well, then start looking at it, start playing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other thing I wanted to tie back to, like you asked a question about when you can see yourself in the astral realm. This is the thing that triggered John, came back finally. But what you had asked, if you could see yourself in the astral realm, is that you, or is that a reflection of the oversoul that's like rippling onto it? Well, this got me thinking for a moment, and it's like, well, when I've been in the astral realm, or when I'm in dreaming or lucid dreaming, I can find my hands, I can find my feet, but if I ever look at a mirror, it's a portal.
Mm-hmm. So you can never really look at yourself.
Yeah, like there is no reflection of what you are. And so your hands are showing it because it's what you're familiar with.
Can you look through the portal back around?
I've never had the desire to. Like
I never even thought about that one.
Yeah, I never thought. Like,
There's no need to.
There's no need to. Like I've never been like I need to know what I look like in the astral. Like,
Got to do your hair
not
properly,
a concern at all. It's not a concern at all. Like, and so like I mean,
that makes me think of this idea of a mirror is a reflection, right? So you're saying there's no reflections or portal, right? But in the astral, you are here now.
Yeah.
Which means reflection is an image of you moving across space, time, and light reflected back across that light from the mirror surface back. It's your eyes reading the light, flipping it back, and doing the whole process to see the image.
Technically, half a step
it's
behind.
a half a step process in space and time. But if you're in the astral, you're here now. There is no reflection.
There is no half step.
There is just here and now.
That's fascinating. There is no reflection. Yeah. There is no spoon.
There's no spoon. So exactly, like that's the thing. It's like I don't think like because even that concept of like for me like when I didn't used to like when I went into dreaming and like do all this I didn't like look for my hands right away. That was a technique taught to me to figure out I was dreaming. You find your hands and then you find the wall. And then if you look at the wall too long, stuff starts to change on the wall. Or you look at an object in the distance, it starts to change. Guess what? You're dreaming because it doesn't happen in reality. But in order to look at something in a distance, find your hands. Oh, look, that bookcase oh, now that bookcase is a rock. Oh, okay, I must be dreaming.
So,
but
like,
before that, I would never look for my hands.
Now, personally, I've only ever been on the astral plane like once, and I came back pretty quickly, and I haven't been able to get back. Is it that vivid? Like, it feels like me and you right now. It's that intense.
It can be.
My experience has been it weaves in and out of being hyper real to this is dream like, but then back to hyper real. So it kind of does this.
So it's slightly fluid in its terms of reality.
Yeah, like you're trying to match a tuning specifically, and you don't know what that frequency is, but you're finding it. If anyone knows old radios, they know.
Yeah. I remember my grandpa's truck. Yeah,
and like a good example too, be like on your smartphone, like when you're taking a picture of like nature. Or like of somebody, and like there's beautiful nature behind him in the summer, and the camera's trying to figure out whether it's going to focus on the people or the background. And it keeps like slightly blurring the background or slightly adding, like making the background lighter and focus on the people, or then the people become slightly unfocused and then the background becomes super digital. It's like it's trying to pick which 8K, like where do I put the 8K? Do the people get the 8K or do just the background get the 8K? Because one of you is getting 1080. Like, and so I think that's more of what it feels like for me when I'm in those zones is like when there's something I'm focused in on, it feels like very vivid, very solid. It's there.
It becomes more real the longer you're looking at it.
Yeah, the longer you're looking at it. But then it becomes, fluid. And that's like another thing that was taught to me like when I go into what I call shamanic dreaming, which is a version of astral projection. It is astral projection, it's just a different, it's not the normal technique.
It's a different technique. That's all. Yes.
Is that like the world around you, like anything that does stay solid deserves your attention. So like if you run into a being and you can look at them and you can maintain eye contact with them and they're not changing in any way, or they're just like they might slightly morph but they're not like crazy morphing away, then that's something worth looking at, focusing on. It's something that's there that is actually part of the current journey. But at the same time, and this is something like I haven't gotten super great at with astral projection. Like people talk about they can just like travel around and stuff. Like, I'm gonna go to Mars today. I'm gonna go see what Mars looks like. And so they go off into Mars.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that one before.
Got to that point, it's more of like I'm in the astral realm, and maybe it just has to do with my intentions, because mainly my intentions have always been just to get into the astral realm. And so then once I'm in the astral realm, it's kind of been like, okay, well, like kind of like now what? But it's been like, oh, well, there must be a purpose, because I'm so purpose driven that everything. I'm not saying everything needs a purpose in life, but I'm so focused, like especially with like if I'm having a mushroom trip or I'm having a meditate, like just a basic meditation, if I can't pull a lesson from it or a purpose from it, it's just fun, and that's okay. But I'm in the astral, so I'm like, well, I'm in the astral, so there needs to be a purpose for it. So it might put me on a trajectory where the things I interact with are there to teach me a lesson. I might actually be pulling in things having a lesson and a purpose for me because I feel like I'm supposed to have a purpose there. Versus just if I went hiking up the mountain for fun, if I treated astral projection that way, I'm just going to the astral projection for fun. I might be able to go to Mars. I might be able to go look at the Earth from the outside. Is it flat? Is it hollow? Is it, like...
That's interesting.
Because I just realized that for myself, it's always been once I'm there, I'm like, cool, I'm here. Well, everything needs a purpose. And then things start having, what's your intention? Oh, my intention is to get something out of this.
But the astral will react to you and your energy.
Yeah.
And then what you're asking of it, it does react to you.
Yeah. So it reacts to that. So I think I get those versions of it versus... other people are getting to explore because their intention is to explore when they go in.
Well, no, that's an interesting thing because there seems to be two different realms of astral projection. There's astral projection where it seems like either the world around you is made by your reaction or you make the world by your intention. And then there's the other astral projection where it's astral projecting like into this room and could watch us.
Yeah.
And then that's the one that goes to Mars. But that one stays here almost. And the other one seems to be on a different plane of reality.
Yeah. And I think that's where like I've been trying to figure out because like there's so many different teachers and people have different like things they say about different things, and like I do believe like lucid dreaming is a separate reality
Okay.
from astral projection.
Yes, I can
Like,
agree. They're
and-
two different.
yeah.
They feel completely different.
Yeah, and then you have your subconscious dreaming,
Okay.
which is like the thoughts of the day, and they're like working their way out.
Mhm.
You know, like when your mind is making process of your day.
Yeah, that's
You
the
have
one you
those-
get where it just replays certain things,
replace
right?
You have those dreams, and then you have dreams that are like messages from ancestors or
Mm-hmm.
downloads, or like like oh, I now know how to fix the sewing machine. Like I now know this part. I now know how to do the spiral ham. I think that's part of like I think those are all 4 realms, and they're like 4 rooms that are like right next to each other, but there is a wall, there is a door, there is a barrier. But the reason I'm saying this, and then this is what I've been trying to figure out, is people say transcendental states and DMT realms and astral projection are all in the same area. And I keep feeling like they're not.
Really, because it would make sense that they are. Like initially upon hearing that, it kind of makes sense. So what's your reasoning then that they
Like,
aren't?
Well, like so what I'm getting at is that I think they are it comes back to the dimensions. That they all are those realms, like as a blanketed over of like you could say, like you could use the word astral realm, shamanic realm, transcendental state, interchangeable. Like you
Yes.
believe you can do that.
Yes,
But
those essentially mean the same thing.
Yeah. But when you get into them, it's like, well, when you go into a transcendental state, are you in a transcendental, like, are you in a heightened state of awareness within, the 4D that we actually are in right now? We're not in the 3D. We've integrated the 3D. We just aren't aware of it.
Mm,
So do you become just, you're a heightened state of awareness. You're now aware that we're in the 4D and that time is slippery. And then you can also enter into a heightened state of awareness, or you're in the 5th dimensional, or you might go into a higher dimension than that. So like
That's
so when I
fascinating.
say astral projection, when people can just like go around and go to Mars,
Mhm.
I feel like that's one realm of the astral projection. Like that's one dimension of it. But then when people go on transcendental journeys and it's like they have Buddha showing up, or they have like they're in the fractal zone where it's nothing but fractals and energy, and you're like one with source, that's separate from astral projection. Because you're in it is astral projection, but it's a higher dimensity. So like
It's no longer bringing, because it seems to be almost an imprint of the human ego is why we still maintain a lot of this.
Yeah.
So that's essentially just going like, here's the astral. You're going up far enough where this is no longer necessary to interact with the
you
energy
don't
around.
interact with it. But also as you go higher up into the dimensions,
Are you
the
moving?
aspects of you that are attached
Yeah.
to those, I think, peel back.
Okay, so you're moving up your chain, basically.
That's what I think. And I
That's
think
fascinating.
once you move up your chain, you also move up your awareness of everything. So like the 5th dimensional me that exists, which the higher version of me, higher self, whatever that is, that lives as a 5th dimensional being, that I can connect to that when I go into the astral realm, or I go into dream state, or I go into shamanic states. I can connect to that.
Okay.
But he's still in a world, or she is still in a realm. They have their own realm, their own thing they can experience. So that 5th dimensional version can walk around on 5D Earth and is aware of that frequency. Is listening to use the radio station example again. Like they're listening to 100
102 FM.
102 FM, yeah. So they're listening to that and they're tuned into that, and they may at that level be able to actually listen to multiple frequencies at the same time. So they can listen to 102 FM, but they're also playing PlayStation Earth, and they're running this avatar that's down here living out their life and having their experiences, and they're fully aware and connected and emotionally invested in that. But also they have the other tasks that come out on the higher self, and there might be 4 or 5 PlayStation Earths they're playing.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how it actually works, but it's just the metaphor to get the visual. But that's because my physical body, in order to understand this concept, needs these physical metaphors. But I feel like when you get into those higher shamanic states or into those higher transcendental zones, you go into the higher dimensions, and there eventually becomes a point where the physicality no longer is an actual thing.
You're no longer applying it to your sense of
No longer
reason.
applying it. And I think this comes into with the dimensions. This is so I really want to dive into and like really explore more at some point, like peel back all the layers and explain this from like my own understanding. Is that after the 6th dimension, the 7th dimension, there isn't a lot of physical beings. And there are a few, but there's a lot less physical beings. And then when you get into the 8th, there's even less. And then past that, there's not really so much physical as there just is vibrations. There just is like using like the canvas as an example, like the painting. So if you had a painting and you're painting on a canvas, the 7th dimension might be the characters that you've drawn. The 8th dimension is your brush. The 9th dimension is just the paint, period.
See, that's interesting because I kind of tied it back to the solar system almost, where you have all of us happening right now on one Gaia.
Yeah.
But with Gaia, there's also Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and the rest. And then we have one solar system.
Yeah.
So all of it's condensed. But then you have the galaxy, and then between the galaxy, you have the nothingness that exists.
Mhm.
And it's the backdrop of the nothingness that gives the purpose of the light. It just kind of reminded me of that kind of cycle there.
Well,
So
and just to piggyback on that for just a quick second, it's that concept of like, yeah, the Earth exists, and the whole solar system exists, but each individual, and this comes back to the whole mate thing a little bit, I just realized, but each individual planet has its own thing, and it is its own vibration. And we do believe that the Earth is like some higher dimensional being.
Exactly. The consciousness is condensed into a larger physical space.
Mars is one too, and the sun is one, but then the whole solar system is one consciousness.
Exactly.
And the galaxy is one consciousness.
We're all scaled to our perspective.
And then, all the galaxies inside the universe is one context. And maybe past that universe is one consciousness inside the actual, like maybe this universe we're in is actually just one oversoul.
That is where you start to get into the Hindu stuff, actually. There was a recent picture that was done by one of the new telescopes they put up, and it looks like there's the creation myth of the Hindus, is it was, an active male creation, so it flowed like a river.
Yeah.
And that's apparently how their stars actually line up in the galaxies, is when you get the galaxies to all line up, it looks like a straight line like this, and then it branches out, and it's like we're right here where it starts to branch out from the center line.
Yeah.
We're almost in the middle, and it's so cool.
Gotcha. I like that. Another thing I was going to add on to there, and the river will tie into this, is all the gap between, you talk about the gap between
there's a gap in between and other places around.
Like even between the gap between your cells and your atoms, there is more nothingness in the universe than there is something.
That is the coolest thing.
And so like there's this little balance of like that the nothingness, the darkness, the gap between everything, that's the divine feminine. And the something, the light that is in existence, the physical of everything, is the
male force.
Is the divine masculine. And I'm distinctly going feminine and masculine because male and female are not like they're a separate entity of that.
Yes.
Like feminine,
we need to differentiate the terminologies for those in our modern day.
The feminine energy is not just female.
Yes.
Like as an example, ayahuasca, people say has a female spirit that they see, but actually has a lot more masculine energy to it than divine feminine energy. Other than it works in the dark, which is divine feminine. And so it's more of a balance between the two actually than it is like one or the other. So bringing us back to the themes. So
that's really fascinating. Yeah. So I have things on that one too.
So anyway, just real fast. The light is the physical, and so on the Earth, whether it's the planets, the solar system, the galaxy, everything. The divine masculine and feminine is in all of that. They're not it's not like you leave the universe and now you can connect with the divine masculine. You leave the universe and now you can connect with the divine feminine.
You're already a part of it.
You're already a part of it, yeah. Which I knew you already knew, but I just want to put that into the explanation. But you were going to say something.
Yeah, the way you said that, like the river flows out, like or the cosmos flows out like a river, and we're at the point where we're branching off.
Yeah, that intersection point, I guess.
Talk about symbols with that, because that point, that made me immediately think of the symbol of Odin hanging himself from the tree with his spear. He became another branch, the 10th branch to the 9 branches of Yggdrasil. He became a 10th realm, its own realm. If we are all our own realm within a greater realm, it makes very much sense that as all parts of that whole, and then that whole is part of another greater whole, the symbol it's a perfect symbol that by spearing himself to the tree, he became an additional branch, and that we all stem from that additional branch. So then I feel like the purpose of everyone's life evolutionarily would basically, I believe, be that is to eventually find your purpose in becoming your own branch, and then actually build that branch out, whether it's your family, whether it's a company, whether it's just the fruits of your labor. You're building out another branch to the great tree.
Okay, so is that the obligation that I talked about last time, where you have your own existence, but you must do something with it to prove worthiness to the gods?
So this
in Nordic mythology specifically, I should say.
I think that also comes as the reason why there are 3 runes, 3 Norns, 3 Fates. That whole thing is always 3, is because, and I'm going to dip into Wheel of Time, the novel here, where the girls are in the Aes Sedai organization. They have to go in front of that big gateway.
Yeah.
So that's told the way back comes but 3 times. You look at the 3 Fates, or the 3 Norns names: Fate, becoming, obligation. You are Fate. You are also becoming. You are also an obligation. You are a paragon and a living form of all 3 things at once. So the fates reflect back on you what you actually are, divided in 3. You are all 3. That is your past, your present, and your future all in one. And it's also your fate. That's why they're called fates in Greek too. That is going to Terminator now. The fate, no fate but what you make, because you aren't bound and have no free will to this thing you're supposed to do. Because sure, you will accomplish it eventually. It's in how you accomplish it that really matters. More than anything else. And so a person could claim that, well, the purpose of my life was to have a good family so my kids could have good lives. Well, in that case, then your great overarching struggle, all that other stuff, was supposed to be that is the branch you are building. That is your fate, was I'm going to have kids. Your becoming was I have to become a worthy father and a worthy member of this family that actually synergizes and makes a positive creation. And then the obligation is I have to constantly, in every moment of my life, live up to that and carry it through to the end.
Okay, so that's interesting. So fate, in your understanding of it, almost refers to the will of man. Because it's not, because a lot of people refer to them as past, present, and future, which kind of feels odd given that it directly translates into fate, or there translates back into fate. So I like that, how it's the fate you choose almost, and it becomes your obligation because you prepare to become that. Is that do I understand this correctly?
Yeah, basically, yeah, because I mean, you have to. There is a whole lifelong process in becoming who you are going to become, but that process is constantly involved. When one man's life, you can take any 2 points in his life, and they will contradict each other.
And that's what you were talking about earlier with the golden thread, is it's in that moment of becoming. It's the act itself. Like you were talking about, there's purpose. The purpose was to get to the astral plane. It was in the act itself that gave it meaning, right?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And like I said, like with the Norse, like the whole, everything was around for these moments. Like it was like you live your life for these moments, but that doesn't mean that, on the day to day they might, still be bickering with each other, or, quote unquote, not keeping the 10 Commandments kind of concept, but they're living in a way that for the moments of glory, they will have those moments of glory. And I say glory not in the way of like praise from the external, that was a part of it, but glory for like how it actually feels like they accomplished the thing. They're in their truest nature. They're in alignment with their truest self and the truest way with their belief of gods, that they're living for the glory of those moments. And that's what matters most, is in that moment. So it is very be here now, but it's like kind of living for the moment to be here now. So instead of being here now always, it's I'm living to be here now with the glorious moment.
When it matters the most, I am as elevated of what I can be to do what I need to do.
When it matters
most.
Gotcha.
That's why they have like huge emphasis on training and things like that in certain Viking mythologies.
That also comes across as their idea of if anything is happening that's worth paying attention to, it's because the gods are watching. Which means if the gods are watching, you better act in a way that allows you to embody the divine moment they are paying attention to.
Hence why usually they're screaming at the storm, because it's Thor testing them.
Exactly.
It's not as what most people would say, it's not breaking them down, it's there to build them up.
Interesting.
Make you stronger. The challenge is what makes you stronger.
I can see how it is they clash with Christianity in certain ways. Like, getting into it, they're very similar in some ways, but very different at the outsets.
One had a very, I don't want to say extreme, but I want to say a very masculine approach to what was going on in their culture and history, while the other one seemed to have a very feminine approach to what was going on in their history.
Completely agree. Yeah. I think that might also due to the difference in the level of society that's needed to survive in their different regions, though, too. Like the harsh Northlands. It makes sense. You're going to get harsher people.
Well, and also just in general, like I'm just thinking like why things would conflict, the beliefs are so similar, but it's like we can see that now from like hindsight, or as being open-minded beings. But like as a humanity, being an open-minded person is only become possible because we're not as focused on survival as we once were. Yeah. So even like the Christians back in the day, and the Nordic, the Norse back in the day, the Northmen, there's this aspect that like a good third to half of life is just about making sure you have food, clothes, shelter.
That's a big thing when you can't go to Kohl's and buy
it. And so like you're spending 8 hours or 12 hours of your day just for that. And so like the gods aren't going to be paying attention to me when I'm tilling my farm. Like they're not going to care about that, but I got to care about that.
So that's when you need to work your magic, man. That's your kingdom now.
So that's like the individual realm. Like that matters in order for this. But that's what, and so I think that's because of that, the lack of open-mindedness, like, we always fear stuff that like we don't understand. That's the nature of human. That's why there's so many wars. And like, oh, I don't understand it, I must kill it. Oh, you don't accept Jesus, we must kill you. Oh, you don't accept, or you do accept Jesus, so now we must kill you.
That's a thing in our psychology too. That's why we squeeze cute things, is because our brains cannot handle the cuteness of an object, so we tend to kill it.
Interesting.
Like
that's funny.
The Distrato takes over because we cannot handle it.
It's so cute, I can't even.
Exactly. See, it's even in our language.
Yeah, it's in our language. Because like I've always got like, that's always made me chuckle. I can't even handle it. Like, and that's really what it is. Like when you're like, I can't even handle how cute it is. That's literally what it is. I just handle it. It's too much. Like it's too much.
It overwhelms.
It's overwhelming.
It's like that we're in this whole idea that we're like in a demonic incarnation or a dark age or whatever. It's like, I wonder if that is more evidence too that our initial reaction to something so purely cute is destroy it.
Destruction.
It can't exist. That's not okay for it to be that cute.
Yeah. So it's actually so cute.
Oh my gosh,
made us
that's
uncomfortable.
Horrible.
It's made us uncomfortable with how cute it is. That's interesting, and so that's why it's important for us to be okay with uncomfortability.
Yes.
That's why, like we talked about this before, like a lot of spiritual practices and deeper things are chosen torture.
Oh yeah, I mean, just look at David Goggins. Lean into the pain. Like there's a certain amount of that you have to be okay with.
But also, it's like if somebody was forced, you must sit down and close your eyes and try not to think about anything. Which I mean is, I want you to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, consecutively at a pace for 10 minutes. And if you can't do this, and your eyes wander, and I notice you're off thinking, you're going to get an electrical shock. Like people would do it, but that would be a torture. But if you were to go to a meditation retreat, like how Ram Dass talks about sometimes, but ones he didn't like to go to, but we're going to sit in meditation for 8 hours.
Yeah, he's got his bag of M&Ms as his one little cheat a day.
Yeah, and if you don't stay in that position, there's someone that's walking around with a kendo stick and they smack you with a kendo stick. You chose to go to that. It's torture.
You knew what you were signing up for. You signed the agreement.
Darkness retreat. You're agreeing to go into darkness, which also I found out the way that darkness retreats are different than solitary confinement.
Really?
Solitary confinement gives you a tiny bit of light. There's a small window, or there's light that comes under the doors. So there's just enough light.
There's a little bit to hold on to.
Well, there's just enough light that your mind can never actually hit the endogenous DMT release point.
Oh, so that's what solitary is.
So solitary confinement has, it's dark. Like it looks dark,
but it's not dark
light,
enough.
But it's not actual, and so that's the problem.
That's
why people
horrifying.
talk about a darkness retreat. Setting up a darkness room is actually very hard to get out all of the light.
Yeah, because even a star, that's gonna provide a lot of light when you're not used to anything.
Yeah, and a tiny and they're saying a millimeter crack, could allow enough light in.
Yeah, I've done that before where I've lost power in the middle of the night. I'm like, well, I need to see, so I've always taken my lighter and just. Yeah. And it's amazing how much you can see with that.
Yeah,
like wow.
So but coming back to that, like again, darkness retreat, though, you're choosing to go into darkness for a certain amount of time. You're choosing to eat a certain amount of foods. If you go on a master plan dieta, you do breath work, you go do an ayahuasca ceremony, a sweat lodge, especially a sweat lodge. You're choosing to be uncomfortable. You're choosing to be uncomfortable to have an experience that is worth it. And so this chosen uncomfortability, I think, gives us a lot of power. And I think that's also why most people, like most really successful most successful people enough. And when I say success in life, I mean like they're doing the job they like. They aren't super stressed. They seem generally happy in life. And they're people that most people look up to and like would want to be like or idolize, also go to the gym a lot. Because they understand there's something about putting in uncomfortability gives you this extra clarity, not just for the physical body, but then anything else you look at has this vibration of like, well, that's uncomfortable. How do I deal with it versus I must hit comfort right away?
Well, it seems to be the power of evolution, but applied consciously. You must overcome, because if you're not, then the fire isn't cleansing you.
It's like I mentioned earlier about how the aggregates kind of make you more animalistic than human. And my studies, I
falling into comfort.
It's not about only becoming a human, but becoming a fully conscious human being where you're aware of everything that you're doing, the effect you're having on everyone else, and you're actually putting conscious effort into showing up as a divine person in every moment.
Very nice. Well, and that leads into this whole concept with like star seeds and extra dimensionals, so Hebs, higher beings, higher evolved beings, like this whole concept of like a lot of them have humanoid like structure. So even like the five-fingered being, as the Navajo talk to it, it's one of those things. Everything keeps evolving into crabs. The kind of concept of like the reptilians have this human like body, the Aryan have human, like the Palladians are this thing, because it's like that idea of like as consciousness evolves, there is this aspect. Now that same time being like it's it's horizontal. The Palladians aren't above me; they're on a horizontal frequency, and that when I tune into that frequency, well, yeah, they are 9 feet tall because it serves that energy. Because when you have that much energy in you, you might need a 9 foot tall being.
I've had a theory on that the Anunnaki have more chakras than we do, and that's why they're bigger. Yes. Is they literally need more space to hold the same amount of energies.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that before too, and that's actually like the whole concept of like when they talk about that, you have the higher chakras that are actually like outside of the physical body.
Once you integrate them, right?
But they're outside of the physical body because but they're not outside of your soul.
Your soul is bigger.
Your soul is bigger, and so like the higher dimensional being is, and so like that's why sometimes these higher chakras that have like the soul star chakra and above. I was about to list a bunch. I was like, there's no need to do that right now. And the reason that's there is that those also line up where they say the soul star chakra is the gateway between the fourth and the fifth, and it lines up because the Anunnaki being a fifth dimensional being would be taller, and then where we would deem one of those higher chakras, like that might actually be their crown. Because they would have 2 sets of 7.
And then with that, the trial that they're facing at the core of their being would change. Whereas ours is our heart chakra, not up here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which means our
Well,
next thing is an act of creation, which is going to be interesting.
What's interesting is that the further back you go in all the cultures of the world, their stories say that when a being decides to go divine and show you his divine form, they don't just go, pop, look, I'm God now. They grow in scale physically.
Ah, that's true. That's cool.
Proportion of that being's divinity. When you go into, for example, the Hindus, they will tell you specifically in their stories that, for example, the Ramayana, Ravana grew to this size, but because Vishnu and Ram are so much more infinitely bigger than him, they grew up to 5 times bigger than him. And in scale, they make sure you know the scale difference in this divine being versus this wannabe divine being.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and you see this in the Egyptians too, like with the statues. Like, so there's a whole thing of like you have these statues that like some of the statues of these gods are like man size, then some of them are 12 feet tall, and some of them are 16 feet tall, and then you have like the Sphinx, which yes is not directly related to the Egyptians. It was from the time of Cam and before that, but that's a giant being.
It is old.
That represented. Some people say like represents like was Leo. Some people also represent might have been in the age of Virgo actually.
That's true, because
way,
the head was recut after it got struck by a meteor like a couple thousand years ago.
Yeah,
so we don't actually even know what it originally looked like.
Different than the head. And
exactly.
That's the thing too, is that those are 2 different generations.
Completely different civilizations even at that point.
At that point when they choose to tap back into it. So you see this thing, like the bigger these beings get because they're of these higher consciousness, these higher energies. And there's somewhere I was going with that, but yeah, you see it there in the Egyptians. Oh, and it was with the chakra system. So with the Journal of Melchizedek's 13 chakra system, they says it comes from the Egypts, but also like you dive into acupuncture and like some of the Eastern traditions, like the chakras. Like first off, there's 88,000 chakras points within your body.
Dear
just
Lord.
talk about the main 7, or sometimes the main 13. But like in when you get into like acupuncture and like some of the Eastern traditions, I'll get more. But in the 13 chakra system, as well as like the 14 or 15 one that comes in with acupuncture, there's the heart, and there's the Christ heart, or the Buddhic heart, and the personal heart. So there's 2 chakras in the heart. And there's one that's the Krishnic energy or the Buddhic energy state, and then the personal heart is actually the higher part of the chest.
Now, is that in the heart? Because I've also seen one placed almost directly over.
Yeah, there's one. Well. I mean, there's a little side one. It's like
okay.
You have your center one that's in your sternum. That would be the heart chakra, which sometimes people draw it off to the side.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
okay.
Yes, but it's usually the heart chakra, and so that's actually the Buddhic or Christ-like heart, and then the higher heart is between the throat and the heart chakra, and that's your personal heart chakra. And so what's interesting is I never took just this moment we were talking about him. You're talking about like stepping in is that. I was like, okay, Christ heart, personal heart. But I was like, wait a minute, the personal heart chakra is technically in the higher chakra zone. So in order to tap into your personal heart chakra, your personal dharma, where you're actually pulling in energy, you would have to at least semi-understand the Krishnic state.
Well, I think it feels like a deeper integration of that state almost to me. Because like you can look at it, like, there's a lot of people who can look at it, and I have a Christ-like love for you.
Yeah.
But am I going to invite you to my home?
Exactly.
Like most people really aren't gonna. Yeah. I think that's the personal one, is when they institute it into their life as a practice, right? It would move up, correct?
It would move up. And and that's the thing too, is it's like this comes in this concept of that like harmonization. Like the chakra points, like you have them all going at all times.
Okay.
And whether they're harmonized or not. Like so you could have your root chakra can be in full harmonization and your throat chakra could be in harmonization. But your heart chakra might be disharmonized. So that same concept, I think you could have your personal heart could be in harmonization, but your Christ heart isn't. And I don't know exactly what that would look like.
I was going to say, that would be like you love your wife, but you hate everyone else. So you're the guy that lives on the edge of the town, the disagreeable.
Or the guy that is fully okay with like, yeah, I'll give my shirt off my back for you, but I might complain about it the whole way.
Exactly.
Or very like how was the way someone put it the other day, East Coast, people are kind, but they're not exactly nice.
Yeah.
So like they'll open the door for you, but they're not going to like smile at you or have small talk with you.
Yeah.
The light turns green, they're going to honk their horn at you. The second it turns green, you didn't move, they're going to flip you off. But you tripped in traffic, I'm going to pick you up and help you.
Yeah, they're right there with you first.
Yeah, so it's like they're going to be kind to you, but they're not nice.
I've had that explained to me
a personal heart, where it's like you understand like it's almost that impeccability. We're all human. We're all in a society. I'm going to help you out because it's like that's the human thing to do. And personally, I would have a moral problem if I didn't do this. But I'm not going to invite you to Thanksgiving. I don't want to know your name. I don't want to know your number. I'm not even going to smile at you.
We ain't friends.
We ain't friends. But if both were in harmonization, then it would be like, I'm this person that tripped that I'm helping put the things in their grocery might end up being my new best friend.
Yeah.
Or based on what boundaries are and what the energetic call for, there might just be I helped you. Great. Your name was Emma. Wonderful to meet you. Have a great day, Emma. Never going to see Emma again.
It reminds me of what Ram Dass talks about when he started to align his heart the proper way.
Yeah.
He would meet somebody and it would be the love of his life, like so much, but then it would break every time somebody would leave. And so that was the keep your heart open in hell.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, though, to come back to that from this angle.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, there's people I've worked with a lot of clients over the years. I've been in a lot of retreats, and it's like, even in my memory sometimes when I'm like remembering like a really powerful retreat and I'll start remembering the people in it, I'll suddenly notice I have a list of like 150 people. And I'm like, there weren't 50 people there weren't 150 people in the retreat. There were 15. So it's like, but there's multiple trees are all merging into the memory. And so like, that's when for me personally, I feel like that's like kind of like this, my version of it's like, I can remember your face. I may remember your name, but I remember your face and your story. And I remember we went through an experience together. Now, was that in October of 2023 or August of 2020? I don't know.
It starts to blur together at a certain point.
But the fact is, like, I remember the energy of that person.
And you remember how they make you feel.
And they feel, and how like I may have made them feel, and like what the experience was. And so I think that's that, for me, that's that balance of like Christ hardship and personal hardship. And there will always be the people you connect with more. And Aubrey Marcus has a really good breakdown of this. He talks about like at the retreats where it's like you come to a Fit for Service retreat. There's 200 people there. You do care about all of them. You do love them in a general sense that you want them to have whatever their intentions are for the next week to happen. And you want them to have joy and success in their life. But when you get there, well, yeah, there's the 20 to 30 people that you're probably going to spend most of the week with. And then there's probably like the 10 to 15 people that like you actually talk to and text, outside of these events. But then there's like those 4 or 5 people that you're going to go up to as soon as you see them and give them a big old bear hug. And like, these are like some of your ride or die people.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you love the other people any less. It just means that you are more connected with this person here. And I love that term. It doesn't say you love this person more or love this. You don't just love them any less. You're just more connected here.
Yeah.
It doesn't even say you love this person more. You're just more connected. You're just a little bit, on the same residency. You like their tattoos.
That's a very good way of looking at it.
More than the person that doesn't, than their tattoos. Like, so that's how I kind of view it. It's like, because we can't be with every single person.
So what you said about how there's the 2 hearts, that struck me as, because the Vikings, the Norse culture has those symbols too, and it's so amazing that like I wasn't even going to go for heart symbology and stuff too, but like you brought it up and I was like, wow. So the way the Norse have it is, a lot of their symbols are not expressed right out the face. And so, like, for example, if a story begins with a character rowing his boat in the water, there's your water element. And it has a whole meaning behind it rather than just, it's just water. No, the Norse, in the Norse storytelling style, they have very specific, every symbol means several other things, and especially in how it's interacting. And so is it peaceful? Is it cold? Is it dark? Does the water letting him row through easily, or is it turbulent? Is there resistance that's splashing him? So when it comes to the hearts, you have 2 gods that symbolize the heart in Nordic mythology. One is Freya, the other one is Frey. And so they're also the twin gods too, brother and sister. Now, one of them, and this is how the Christians were able to come and start to absorb the Norse cultures, was Frey. His heart is symbolized as being in flames, but not burned yet, but also has rose thorns enwrapping it. Now, that sounds very much like the Christian heart symbology, that the Christ heart symbology, especially the Catholics use. I see it on candles every time I'm at the store. And that is Frey. That is a masculine love, but it is a pure love. It's that familial, but also brotherly and companionship. It's that whole side that it can still be a pure love. But it's a sacrificial love. It is a sacrifice of my own innermost self to help you out in your life and what you're doing. And that's what makes it the ultimate gift, and why it's on fire and wrapped in thorns, because that sacrifice hurts and it burns for a while. But there's also his story, how Frey's story ends in Ragnarok is he is without his prized weapon to face Surtur at the base of the tree of Yggdrasil, and Surtur unleashes his flames on him and burns him alive, burning the tree as well. And so there is that too, is that eventually you will have to give it all to the final burning sacrifice, which is our own death, where we enter the flames for the final time at the end of our story.
Okay.
Now we have another heart too. We have his sister Freya. That heart is symbolized as a pure pink heart with the wings attached to it, which we think, Cupid symbology, right? It's that we see that everywhere in the West, especially in all of our little kids' stories. And so that represents that feminine love. It's also a pure love, but it's a very innocent, a very just because of what you are, it is there to love you and uplift you no matter what. It is like how a mother would be, where I don't care that you're being a piece of crap today, son. I love you the most anyway. I don't care if you're screaming back at me being disrespectful daughter. I love you the most anyway. And all of my actions towards you are out of love in a way that's meant to uplift you rather than any other interaction. It's uplifting feminine motherly love. And when the two, you separate them, you end up with just a disjointed understanding of things. You can't just have one kind of love. You can't just have the other. It has to be together, which is why they're brother and sister in the same kingdom, constantly interacting with each other, because those two have to be together in the same place at the same time, or else you will be out of balance. And in the overarching story of the gods, all the way until Ragnarok and Recycle or Regeneration, is all about how to achieve a balance, a new balance when things get unbalanced.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it. There's interesting how the symbology bounces from culture to culture, but also like how these are like just so similar things that are there. And it's like, I mean, so like even that concept, like we keep calling it like the Christ heart, and and I say Buddhic state and so forth, because like those are states of being. Like Christ was a title given. He's Jesus of Nazareth, retained Christnik energy. Buddha had was a different name and then became a Buddha. There have been other Buddhas. And so there's the Buddhic state, this fourth dimensional one love.
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 Buddhas I think that are recognized, aren't they?
They're recognized, and that's not counting the ones that come from the Boon faith, which was the faith before Buddha. But at the same time, they all had something very similar. And
there's supposed to be one more Buddha in the modern day. I think they have an actual apocalyptic one that's supposed to show up too.
Awesome, gotcha.
Yeah, I know, that's gonna be fun.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's what's interesting. Is there's a lot.
Garth the Destroyer.
Garth the Destroyer. I was going to say that.
The world will end in wolves.
I have a personal theory that every major main culture or tribe of humanity has their savior and their destroyers. And in every era, there are candidates for both that come and go. And that when you have one actually manifest as I am that thing, it's because that era is coming to a tipping point where where all of those energies and primal forces are meant to manifest in their fullest to do the job, to do the deed, to do the work that causes the change in the tipping of the scale. And if that's the case, then any one of us has the potential to be the savior or the destroyer within our own lives and in conjunction with everyone else's, all the going out to society. We're moving into a state in the world where all of the different tribes of humanity are now becoming one unified tribe. So what happens to the savior and the destroyer? That's meant to come for the new unified tribe, one last one. And every one of these tribes, cultures, major religions have a theology about one final destroyer or savior. Could be both. Sometimes they have both. That has to come, and they even have the signs and the reasons and everything else of why they have to come and what service they have to what service they have to perform.
Gotcha. No, it's true. Well, because it's interesting too, because there's sort of a great book out there called Conversation with God, which is where I'm pulling this from, because it's something like I like this belief a lot, and it's not something I've like had personal enough experiences to like prove that it's true, but I believe like it makes sense in a lot of ways. And it's the concept that like when as a collective, like we create events together as a collective consciousness, we create certain things and ripple effects that happen as a world. And so when the world was in a state of being where like they had been so separated from each other, and there were a lot of like rules, like I'm just like the Pharisee times, where it's like, here's the 10 commandments. Now here's the Pharisee rules that we've added on to make sure you never break the 10 commandments. And everyone's so separate. It's like in a time when most people became extremely separated, and we're just desiring some kind of unification, some kind of like new knowledge, we cause the Christ experience. We cause the Buddha experience. We cause the Krishnic experience. When those individual cultures were having that, but also worldwide, there's this desire for it. Some were even in indigenous cultures, when they were so divided, had actually lost a lot of their indigenous ways, weren't believing in their things, were in extreme drought. Does White Buffalo Woman show up, give them the peace pipe, the blanket, the 7 directions, teach them all these new things, and they come back to being a spiritual being. But at the same time, when the world is in such disarray, like we are purposely choosing divine. So when a savior comes, essentially, the savior-like energy comes, there's a desire to be unified of some kind. There's a time to like, we want to love our neighbor, we want to recognize brotherhood and sisterhood. We want to step into wholeship. When there's an energy in the collective that we don't want to be in wholeship, and we're actually in a lot of division, and we're very separated, and we're choosing separation. We would prefer to have the separation over the unification, and we're choosing that as a collective consciousness. we have things like the Hitler experience, the
I was
Stalin experience.
Just going to bring up Weimar Germany, actually.
Yeah, like all of those kinds of things happen when we're choosing, I want separate. I'm above this person. I'm better than you. You're below me. You're woke. You're not woke. I'm woke. I have consciousness. I'm a high, like, me and my higher self, like we get downloads. I know you're not on that path yet. Like you're still figuring out your spiritual journey. All of that kind of talk, and I'm distinctly going into the spiritual realm for a reason because it's a split I'm seeing in spirituality. I'm just so high vibes. I know you'll get there, bro. You'll get there. Like, dude, don't deny anyone else's path they're on. Like, they're doing the fucking work.
I'm sad and I want to be sad.
Yeah, or the concept too of like, it's like the guy who cut you off in traffic and flipped you off. You have no idea what kind of personal work he's done. Like maybe he's in the middle of it right now.
For all you know, that's a guru and he's testing you.
And he's testing you, exactly. Yeah, like it's that whole concept. Like, so I said it because like people lean into that of like, I'm above you, you're below me. When we lean into that, we have these Hitler experiences, we have these Stalin experiences. But when we want to be unified, we have more beautiful world. So I think that's where we're going as a collective, is that there will be that split. We've talked about this a little bit before amongst ourselves, and maybe on a podcast or two, I think we talked about it a little bit. But in general, like there's this split between those that will lead to an actual apocalyptic world and a destructive nature, and there will be the other people that experience a more beautiful world, and there will literally be a split in the vibration.
Okay, so I got a question for you on this one, because I love that you brought up the Hitler thing, because there's some journals that were written by Churchill after World War I and before World War II that are very interesting. It gets into the psychology of the German people, and I want to get into this because it brings up the god Wodan. He's a proto-Odin, specifically the warrior aspect. Wodan, what he does is he finds the biggest guy in the room, and he challenges you to a fight because he wants to see if you're worthy or not to stand with him. There's a theory that the German people, and that Hitler specifically, was worshiping Wodan and embodying that energy, and that's why he picked all the fights that he did and did that way.
Why he picked all the symbols he did, and why the SS even started building a pagan cult around it.
All of those symbols tie back into Wodan, and many of them back into Odin. But the reason I bring this up is because in Churchill's journals, he talks about creating an environment that a certain person will be able to take advantage of, which was Hitler. So what you talked about, how there's candidates, I think that's accurate. I think it's a mix of what both you guys have, where you create the environment and you can draw certain aspects out of a culture and population, out of a state of crises specifically, it seems.
Yeah. Well, look at the forbidden symbol he appropriated from the glorious symbol of the Hindus, was the swastika. The swastika in the German sense is four spiraling lightning runes, Sowilo, lightning runes, which is the heaven to earth power itself. That's that divine bang that can happen. So 4 of them in a cycle. Now the way that he flipped it from being cups that fill with the water of life. That's the Hindu version of the symbol.
Which is why they have the dots around it, right?
Exactly. It's filling with the waters of life.
Okay.
He changed it to be 4 lightning runes, dumping out the waters of life. So it became a death wheel. A death wheel of such power, technically in 4 directions, 4 realms, multiplied 4 times on itself. And in constant motion. So that explains, if you believe in the esoteric side of it and the magic of it, that explains a lot of the how did they get so powerful? How did they get so much support? How did they just ransack half of Europe?
They emptied the Vates.
They were emptying generations of build-up in the name of Wodan, which Odin, you could say, because, okay, let's get into Wodan, Wotan, and Wotan.
Yes, I would love to. These guys are fun.
Where you have Wodan, there's also a regional connection, but if you look at the migrations of all the barbarian kingdoms back then, all of the peoples back then in cultures, they had several mass migrations that are the reason why the French are where they're at, the Celts and the Gaelic cultures are spread throughout the islands in the far west of Europe and everything. It's because they all moved basically the size of half of Europe twice west from migrations over the course of 1,000 years. That is why you have all of the Celto-Gaelic symbols everywhere across Europe, and it's like, yeah, but these cultures they move.
Yeah, we found them over here on the far end. It's because they originally were over here.
And yet they still connect with the Slavic ones on the far east because they all moved over so many times. What you have is the oldest one, like you said, is the whole Wodan, the god of war, sacrificial power, all that, right? That, if you go into the Norse mythology, would make most sense to be the Odin that was being raised by his father, who was an absolute war god of he would go across the 9 realms just to go and slaughter them, just to give them the war. This has elements of the wild hunt from even older mythologies.
Yes, and that's what Wodan is. He's specifically a wild type warrior in the wilderness wandering.
Exactly. Gotcha. And so that's him doing that, right? He accumulates generations of energy from this wild hunt, from this behavior of accumulating that power, that force, those warriors, their souls. Move over into the next one where it's Wotan, Wodan. And Woden, you have a more, we've defeated Bor. I'm now going about the 9 realms, establishing a new order. Whether you want to consider that as he's going through his chakras or his Sephiroth or whatever to reestablish a divine order, he does all of that before he goes to Mimir's Well to become the Odin we all know, the truly worthy, wise king of the gods, which is where you have the Odin story, where he's already that. In fact, the Odin story begins with him making the journey to the well. So I believe personally that's our evidence of there were 3 versions of him because he had 3 lives to live. Again, the 3 Norns.
3. It also goes back into the Hindu mythology as well, the 3 incarnations, which if we're dealing with the fates, then that applies.
And that's how the Christianity were able to say, oh, it's a trinity too. Therefore, we can bring all these cultures back in saying it's another trinity.
Yeah. Well, and to me, this is what we'll wrap this one because I want to go dive deeper into Woden with like the Norse mythology and so forth. I feel like that's going to be another hour and a half long, 2-hour conversation, which I'm totally down for.
Minimum.
Yeah. But especially like how it ties in with, the influences and the ripple effects of like how it's come in. But even as we've talked about here, like the 3 that keeps coming up, like, you have the 3 Norns and the 3 Fates and different things. You even had this, and back in a lot of the Peruvian traditions, and you'll see this in indigenous cultures too, but in the Peruvian traditions, it used to be they'd hold, you still see pictures of this, they hold 3 coca leaves. And that was actually like this, and there was this blessing to 3, but a lot of all these symbolology of 3, and I've had a few teachers as well as a few people I've read like books from, and I really like this concept, and I do believe it's real, is that all the 3 was a representation when we were more focused in the 3rd dimension. That it was all these ripple effects of this is how the 3s were aligned. So like a triangle is the most strongest shape. Like it is the hardest shape to break is a triangle. It's hardest shape to break. And that's why like bridge supports, there's all the triangles are actually there with the the facet. But it's not a very balanced shape. It can only lay on one side.
Yeah, it's strong only from one direction. You go at it from any others, it shatters.
It shatters, and so it only has this the certain aspect of it. And so the square has 4 sides, and this comes into the circling of the square that you hear about. Like the square is moving, it has the 4 sides, that's the 4th dimension, and as it crosses over the circle, it creates a cross, a symbol, and that's the 90 degrees. And I won't go into the sacred geometry, but like that represents the 4th dimension, and that's why. And like in the Peruvian traditions, there's these different sayings, and at some point, sometime in the 2000s, and like people have given a year to it now, but when it was first talked about, there wasn't a year added to it. It was just like when certain signs happen, that's a showing that we've actually slipped into the 4th world. We're actually in the 4th world, and that's why. And if you've noticed over the last and I believe it did happen in the early 2000s. It might have been 2012, but I'm going to say like sometime between 2000 and 2020. If you've noticed, most of the spirituality things that get talked about, most of the New Age spirituality, and a lot of newer people that are coming out and talking, you can have this a little bit with like Terrence McKenna and Alan Watts when they were speaking about stuff. It comes back into this 4 element aspect, or the 7 chakra aspect, but it comes back into these 4 sides because we're more in the 4th dimension. Everything's leaning more into 4 when it used to lean into 3. And for thousands of years, we were in the 3rd dimension. That's why there's all these 3s. But if you notice anything that's like newer coming out, like, yes, I know New Age spirituality, it's taking the old and this new, but like all these newer downloads, there's these levels of like 4. Like it's really important to balance the 4 elements within yourself. You want to attain a better life, have these aspects of you. Or it's great to eat good food, get good sleep, get good exercise, have good relationships. Oh, there's 4 there again. I know all these are more practical than they are like on the spiritual side, but leaning into the spiritual side too is like this. There's a lot more 4 repeating, and there's even this thing with like in the Peruvians where now when they do a lot of their things where they used to like offer like 3 coca leaves or 2 coca leaves. Each leaf has different meanings. Each number has different meanings, but there is this thing when they put the 4 leaves down now. It's representation of like we're slipping into this 4th world. All these prophecies that were out and about in indigenous cultures about that we're going to come to pass at some point are happening. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Like that phrase, like it's because we're there. We're now there. We're at the precipice where the old paradigm is falling away and still serves, but we're literally in that moment of Fibonacci where we're taking the past and our current understanding of the past and our current understanding of everything to create the next world.
Oh, so with Fibonacci, then, for example, if you were to write Fibonacci on like a piece of paper, there's a point where we can't perceive past. We're at that. That's like the mirror wall, and then we're going to move to the next portion of the spiral that we can perceive.
Kind of like and that, but almost more zoomed in.
Even more zoomed in. Okay.
More zoomed in.
So fractal holographic.
It doesn't end, right?
So it doesn't end. But like Fibonacci,
there's limitations to how we portray it.
Short version is that the number sequence goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and because it's always just taking the last one and the current one and adding it together. So in this state of moving to the fourth dimension, we're somewhere on the Fibonacci wheel, but we are looking at, the past number. So quote unquote, just to keep it simple, we are at number 5 and we're looking at 3 and we're taking the information from 3 to mix it with 5 to create 8.
To make it all make sense, because everything that is a sum of what
but
came
like
before.
once we fully integrate 3, we will understand 5 enough that we automatically integrate to 8, because the new now will be that.
Now we're integrating 8 with whatever comes next.
Because it's always taking the past and the current to create, or the past and the now to create the new now.
Okay.
Yeah, I got
okay. Yeah, I mean,
to plan for you.
Yeah,
just got me on. So first, let's take these ideas of these sacred numbers and keep applying, right? Because all the cultures have them, and a lot of them do repeat, and they do break down into each other. So let's go with, you have 3, 6, 9, you have 5, 7, and 10. It goes up to 12, 21, 23, and all these other numbers keep stacking up, 32, all of them, right? All the way up to 66 and 77. And so imagine this, is that you have 4 elements. That's your first 4. 4 directions, 4 cardinals, whatever. You have your 4, right? Yeah. Above that, you have 3. What could those 3 be? 3 perspectives, right? Nernandi, Nernandi, I got it all mixed up in my
Urd Verdandi Skuld. That's it. You messed with me now too.
So there's your 3 perspectives. Together, the 4 and the 3 is the 7. There's your sacred 7. The chakra, the 7 archangels. If you go Judeo-Christian, like you have your 7 now, your sacred 7. You add another 1 onto that, it becomes an 8. What could that 1 be? Well, that could either be the idea that you can perceive what is happening, or that you have a higher connection. That is your God. Once you have your God or source connection, the 8 can move again because it's reflecting itself into man and woman. That's how you get another 9. 9 is a sacred number across 3, 6, 9. It's the most sacred number in Norse mythology as well. And so then you have 9 branches on the tree of Yggdrasil, as well as 9 roots. The 10th root is the body of Ymir. The 10th branch is Odin on the tree with his spear. And there you have all the way up to 10. 10 can multiply into 20. Then what's 11 and 12? That becomes Ragnarök and recycle.
No, it's the destruction. It's the axe adding itself to the tree. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, everything in Norse is a deep symbol.
It's all cyclical.
Start to conjunct with each other as well.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you for the mustard. So you said you were planting seeds, and I'm like, faith the size of a mustard seed.
Yes. Beautiful plant. There's the seeds, and I like the tree that has grown from it, that Odin can now hang on.
Yes.
That was interesting, though. The body of Ymir forming the root. That's interesting. I haven't heard that part before.
Yeah. So I think with that, that's a good place to end this one with that synopsis that you have there. So very much, thank you, John. It's been great. Thanks, you guys.
Always a pleasure being here.
Yeah, it is a pleasure.
Drink more water, get more sunlight.
Live enlightened.
Peace, love, and namaste.
Love and peace.
Nah, I'm gonna stay.